We do have a quorum.
Let me call the roll now.
Yes, would you please call the roll? Thank you.
Mr. Brennan,
Present.
Mr. Burgess,
Present.
Mrs. Gleason,
Present.
Representative Howard,
Present.
Mr. Lawson,
Present.
Ms. Mood,
Here.
Dr. Morris,
Here.
Mr. Smith, Ms. Tracio,
Here.
Mr. Overture Walker, Mr. Kane, Mr. Green,
Here.
Mr. Jenkins,
I'm here.
Mr. Coon, Ms. Robinson, Ms. Summers, here, Mr. Unthank. Mr. Unthank, you're on mute, sir. And Mayor Walker.
Yes, here.
All right.
Hey, this is BJ. Sorry about
Thank you,
that.
sir.
All right, the next item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion regarding the agenda? Or are there any changes or updates?
I move adoption of the agenda.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Any discussion regarding the agenda, including from staff? Hearing none, I'll have, we call the roll for the adoption of the agenda.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Brennan,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Gleason,
Right there. Face me.
Mrs. Gleason,
Yes.
Representative Howard,
Yes. Adoption. Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Ms. Mood,
Yes.
Dr. Morris,
Hey, man, how are you?
Yeah.
Mr. Smith, and Ms. Tracio,
Yes.
and Councilman Walker. All right, the motion passes.
The next item is the item 3, the Midlands Transit Riders Association update. Do we have an update today?
I do not see them on the line. Mr. Gossett is usually here.
Okay. So we'll move past that to number 4, the call to the public. 4A is individuals wishing to address the board. Well, I guess, not two different things, it's just, folks have signed in, and we have a time limit of 2 minutes per person. Are there folks who wish to address the board?
Good afternoon.
Come
on here.
Okay, thank you very, very much.
Could you tell us your name?
Yes, sir,
Thank you.
I will. Good afternoon. It's very difficult for people to find Dr. Jermon Miller because most people here in Columbia know me as Mama G. And I serve through the City of Columbia for Parks and Recreation Columbia, and I am a program coordinator. And I didn't bring enough for everyone, so I will present just to our chairman here, if that's okay. Approximately 3 years ago, thank you, we had reenactors on our comment for Black History Month. I was Harriet Tubman. We had Shaka Zulu. We had anybody you could think of, we were riding the buses. And this was something, and there was a sign on the comment to let people know this was going to happen. We had conversations between each other. Shaka Zulu got on Aganaton's case a little bit because his outfit looked like a dress. And we also met our riders. I am a Northerner. I do public transportation, so it was rather difficult to get adjusted just to drive everywhere. I am petitioning that if possible, we would like to present the opportunity, our young adults that we have, these are college students, and our mentors in the RICH program, to once again do this for our riders. We do have other information, if you need it, I can put it in an email form. Any questions? We had a lot of fun doing this. People are like, who are these people on the bus? But it's to bring knowledge. It's to bring information. I understand they even had poetry one time on the comment, and that gentleman is incredible with the poetry.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
I know we can't vote on something that's not on our agenda, but could we take this request and make that an action item on the next agenda?
Sure. I'm okay with that.
Madam Chair, I have a question too.
Yes.
Since I was here when this was done, if we do have students acting as historical figures, these students should be briefed
Yes, sir.
about these historical figures.
Oh, yes, sir.
Last time the students were here, there was some questions to students just trying to egg them on to talk. They didn't have a clue who that individual that they were impersonating was.
Yes,
And
sir.
I thought that was kind of insulting. So
Okay,
if we
they were
are
on the
gonna have
bus.
students,
Okay.
they should be briefed.
I will make, as a behavioral scientist, sir, urban anthropologist, I will make sure this time that even though they are dressed, they will be appropriately educated on those things. Yes, sir. I give you my word.
Madam Chairman, I have a question as well.
Okay.
Ma'am, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Yes, Dr. Jermon Miller, AKA Mama G.
Mama G, I like Mama G better.
Thank you. Mayor Benjamin even calls me Mama G.
So,
Yes.
Mama G, I'm just curious, what are your the areas of interest that you're looking at performing the reenactment in?
When we say interests, sir.
Like, so I guess for us, it would be which routes, but I guess more specifically, what sides of town, what areas in the
Yes,
city?
sir. Specifically in what we would call the, where the station is, you know, that area. And I think somewhere it might have shown the routes that we were on the last time.
Okay,
There's a picture of a young
Join the
man
meeting.
shaking Shaka Zulu's hand in the station. So it's just to increase awareness, and we do give handouts out, we do, so. And the Rich program is located at Pacific Park, across the street from 701 Whaling. And I like being Harriet Tubman.
So we have your contact
Yes, sir.
information, and we'll talk about that for possibly an action item for the next agenda.
We will support that.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you.
blessed
Thank
day.
you.
Take care.
all right. And then I have Mr. Michael Crowley.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you letting me, I picked a great time to come to a board meeting. I appreciate that. I'll be brief. I'm Inspector Crowley for the Columbia Police Department. Been here actually a year today is my year anniversary with the Columbia Police Department. But anyway, thank you very much. A couple things I wanted to ask you for your assistance for the board is there are two bus stops at on Main Street. One, and it's not the bus stop, it's the shelters. One on about the 2100 block right past Elmwood, and the one across from the transitions. And quite frankly, they're being used as a hotel. And it is a large amount of police resources. We move them, people along, when we leave, they come back. And it's just, bus stops are fine. I've done a good bit of time watching, and very few people are wanting to actually stand there because of all the activity there. And just want to ask the board if you would please consider removing those shelters. They are a problem.
Thank you.
When you say that, let me ask you a question.
Yes,
When you
sir.
say that they're a problem, people they're sleeping in the shelter?
Sleeping, or they're going to, which is some of the problems we have is it's not just, they're buying alcohol, they're sitting there all day. I've watched it there will be 3 or 4 buses that will come through, all on time too, by the way. I'm amazed as I sat and watched. So you can, like clockwork, you can get those buses, and they're not riding the buses, nobody's getting on or off. And sometimes there's so many people there. We will come in, we will move them along because they can't sit there if they're not riding the bus. As soon as the officers leave, they come back, and it's just, we can move them, but it just takes an enormous amount of police resources to try to get them to stay away. I think if we can, they're gonna pivot somewhere else, we'll deal with that too. But if we can get them off of that, right there off the main street, then I can deal with the other problems that are there too.
So I don't understand what, by removing that bus stop, what will that do?
There's nowhere for them to hang because their contention, if we go there, they just say, we're waiting on the bus. So we have to sit through, we can't just run them, we have to wait through to make sure they're not riding the bus. That could take an hour and a half, 2 hours. Then we realize they're not waiting on the bus, they're just loitering is basically what they're doing. And they're using Comet's bus stops as protection.
Right.
If there's just a bus stop there and the sign, they're either riding the bus like they should be, or they can't just hang there.
Madam Chairman, what's our policy on shelters on the bus stops?
I
I'm sorry,
couldn't
I
speak to
asked
that right, just off the
Madam
cuff.
Chair,
Yes.
I would like to, are you entertaining motions now? I'd like to make that motion to remove those 2 stops.
It's further down on the
We would have to
It's
put
further
it
down.
down as a
Oh,
motion
it is.
period. But if you'll make a note, I'll make a note to call on you during that time.
So this is already an item on the.
Yes,
Yes.
it's 6, what is it, 6G?
I'll hold my comments then.
Okay, 6G, yeah.
I have
Got
one
it.
question for you, sir. Since you've been kind of like staking out and observing the area, is it believed to be a high traffic area for Comet riders?
I could not answer, I would not know how, I can tell you the times I've been out there,
Mhm.
which would not probably be totally accurate. Very few people, very few, I can count on one hand, since I've been out there for about 4 or 5 months, several times a week that I've actually seen people get on or off the bus. Problem is if there's a large group of people there drinking, stuff, nobody's gonna wanna, they're gonna go find another bus stop. And you can go out Main Street, right? No problems there, everything's fine. It's just right there. It's just it's close to the Elmwood and transitions, and individuals are looking for a place to hang out.
So in your professional opinion, you're saying that you think that the utilization of riders at that specific stop is low?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
If I may speak, I think removing the shelter would be fine, but the bus stop needs to stay.
I agree.
Because the ones that do need to catch the bus on the outbound has to go somewhere to catch that bus.
Right.
And we're we're not asking to move the bus stop, we're asking to remove the shelter.
Shelter, yes.
Okay.
That's the problem, is the shelter.
Yeah, that's what I was, yeah.
Yeah, we need the bus stop.
Absolutely, yeah, and and I think the bus stop, I mean, this would be my guess, I think ridership would pick up at that point, because there are some other things in that area that I am tasked with addressing too, so hopefully it will be a nice place to catch the bus. That's what you need to do.
If you would just stick around for me.
Yes, sir.
Because we're gonna discuss an item, in our next, item 6G, so you just stick around in
Yes,
case
sir.
there are more questions, please.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 5 is the consent calendar. The items listed under the consent calendar will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed for separate discussion and action. So those are the approval of the October 27, 2021 board minutes, approval of the invoice payment selection listing ending November 30th, 2021. Those can be found on pages 10 through 35. But actually starting, the minutes are starting on page 3. And the invoice payment starts on page 10 through 35. Is there a motion regarding the consent
Move
item?
approval of the items on the consent calendar.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. Any discussion on the consent calendar? Hearing and seeing none. Can we call the roll for item 5?
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess?
Yes.
Ms. Gleason?
Yes.
Representative Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Smith? Ms. Tracy? Seal?
Yes.
Mr. Walker? The motion carries.
Thank you. That brings us to item 6, our discussion and action items. 6A, is the selection of officers of the Comet Board of Directors. So is there, do we want to go through one by one? Okay, I'm going to flip back over so I can see. Should we start with chair or should we start with treasurer?
Start with chair.
Start with chair.
Yeah. I think so.
Start with
Okay.
chair.
Great. Is there a motion regarding the office of chair? I'm looking on the screen too.
I move, I nominate Mr. Ratio for chair of the board.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I didn't mean to look meaningfully at you. All right, it's been moved and properly seconded for Allison Horatio to be chair. Any discussion?
Mrs. Chair,
Yes, Dr.
Mrs.
Morris.
Chair?
Yes,
Dr. Morris, we
Yes.
don't need a motion. All we need is a nomination,
okay.
and that's it. We don't need a motion on that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Morris, for getting us straight. I'm gonna have to get better, the difference between my council meetings and this, I'm gonna have to do some learning. Okay, so I guess we'll just call the roll if there are no other nominations. Any other nominations? And I'm looking around.
If there are no other nominations, I move we accept that nomination by acclamation.
Okay,
Second.
great. Do we need to call a roll or? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you all.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. All right, moving forward, the next office is the office of vice chair. Is there a nomination from the floor regarding the vice chair?
Mrs. Chair,
Yes,
Mr. Chair,
Dr. Morris.
I would like to nominate Mr. Burgess.
Okay, thank you.
I second it.
Okay. Mr. Burgess, do you accept?
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Thank you. Wow. Are any other nominations? Is that how I do it? Do I call for any other? Okay. I am hearing and seeing none. So we can accept the nomination for Mr. Burgess by acclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Congratulations, Mr. Burgess.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Do it again.
The next office is the office of secretary. Is there a motion from the floor for secretary?
He's already secretary.
Okay.
Just
Oh, wait,
those
we
two.
don't have to redo that.
Just
Okay.
those two, that's it.
I'm sorry. We don't have to do any more. Well, you remain.
Mr. Chair?
Dr. Morris.
Okay, this election is for 6.5 months.
Right.
Okay, so I
And
just
then
want to make sure
we do all this again in June.
that's
or
correct.
July.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Morris. Okay, that brings us to 6B, discussion of resuming in-person meetings. How do we want to start off with this? I'll just start off by saying this is really lovely. We don't have to have a huge meal every time. Does anyone want to be recognized in relation to resuming in-person meetings?
I like the idea. I'm Carolyn Gleason. I like the idea of us meeting back in person when we can, as long as everybody feels comfortable with it. And I do.
Thank you. I think I think in the past, we did also have the kind of hybrid model anyway.
Yeah, I'd like us to keep the ability to participate virtually.
Yes, simply because I think it allows for more participation from everyone. Okay, is there a motion regarding resuming in-person meetings?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Dr. Morris?
I didn't fully understand what your statement was, but I'm thinking that we always could call in. We could return to in-person meeting, but board members have the right to call in also. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And
Okay.
because now we are more used to Zoom technology, I think we can, or this is Teams.
Zoom.
This is Zoom, okay. So we are more used to Zoom technology now, and so I think if people want to show up on video, they can also choose to do that. Okay, now, is there a motion regarding in-person meetings?
Give that a try. I move that we resume in-person board meetings for those who are willing and able to do that, and maintain virtual access for people who prefer to access the meetings that way.
Great. Do you have an effective date for your motion?
Effective today.
Okay.
I'd like to amend that if you,
Okay.
for board and committee.
For boards and committees. Yes, I accept that amendment.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Madam Chair, one question.
Uh-huh.
Do we have to make any policy changes that we were operating under an emergency? Or can this just go into effect immediately?
Is there, I don't know whether the COVID ad hoc committee had done a policy change, but I don't believe so, because this would just be going back to the way we were operating prior.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Great. Will you call the roll for that motion?
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess?
Yes.
Mrs. Wheaton?
Yes.
Representative Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Ms. Moody?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Smith? Ms. Teresa?
Yes?
And Councilman Walker? The motion carries.
Great. That brings us to item 6C, the Lucius Road update. Mr. Harris, would you like to?
Yes, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right, sounds good. So we do have Scudder Wag on the line as well. He's going to actually provide a presentation of what was discussed in the service committee. And then we will segue that discussion into just providing updates and how we wish to kind of proceed and move forward and things of that nature. Scudder, are you here on the line?
Yes, I'm here. Can you all hear me?
Could you blow up Mr. Scott?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
I think that they're asking to make you larger on the screen. There we go. Great. Thank you.
Okay. And I'm going to share my screen to do a short presentation here. So let me get that up and running. Can you all see my screen in the presentation now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to speak with you all today. We've been working with you all as a board. I've presented to you a few times in the past about our process. We've been working with staff diligently, with Eric and your leadership, which has obviously been in a bit of transition over the last year or so, to develop the Reimagine the Comet plan, which is ultimately going to be a 10-year plan for your service, for your routes, where service runs, how frequently, and so on. We've been through a concepts process. You all gave us a resolution of a recommendation around how much to emphasize high frequency, high ridership service, and how much to, which what you said, 60% of your resources should go towards that. And then 40% of resources should be emphasizing covering as many people, particularly people of need, as possible. So we have taken that direction. Last month, we held a design retreat with staff representatives from Richland County and from the city of Columbia to sketch out a draft recommended network. Basically, the frequency of service by route, where routes go, where they would turn around, where they would end, where they would run, and so on. We have also sketched out a set of recommendations, including potential service expansions for Lexington County, because at one point we were asked to consider that possibility. So we're working with Eric to get a meeting with Lexington County staff to review those ideas with them before they are finalized into or I should say, before we move forward with those in the draft plan process. Assuming those meetings and that coordination happen soon, we anticipate having a draft plan ready for review by February, where we would come back and present that plan to you all and also to the public to have at least 2 public meetings and a public survey to get feedback on that recommended plan and the likely revisions to that plan process, or likely revisions to that plan based on feedback, and coming back to you all as a final board adoption in April. So that's a quick update on just the general status of where we are on the plan. One of the key assumptions, obviously, in a plan for your routes and where they're going is how they connect at a central point in the region. Today, most of your routes connect centrally at Comet Central in downtown Columbia. And we presented to the service committee, it was in October, right, Eric? To just review the reason for that connection. And I just want to go over that today because we were asked to bring this presentation up to the board. And it's an important factor in ultimately all of your service planning for the region. So today, most of your routes come downtown and they connect downtown at Comet Central. You also have a few locations like in Croson or the Columbia Place Mall, where some outer suburban routes make connections to each other. And these timed connections, we sometimes call them pulses in transit service planning, are really critical to the ability for people to get places in a reasonable amount of time. And so I want to just go through why that's important to this planning process and to your network in general. So most of your service in Columbia today, that's sketched out roughly on this map. The dark blue lines represent service that comes every 30 minutes. The light blue lines represent service that comes every hour. So most of your network is what we would call relatively low frequency service. And therefore, if those routes intersect each other randomly at random times, you will have relatively long waits to make connections. So this is a simplified example of if you had no transit center to connect 3 routes together because you didn't have space to bring the routes together and have the buses meet and wait for 5 minutes or so, which is what's happening at Comet Central, it's what's happening at your suburban super stops and other places in your network. The challenge you face then is that your routes have to be on timings that mean they do not come together at the same place at the same time. So each of these routes in this example are running hourly, but they're offset from each other because there's not enough space where they actually touch each other for routes to meet at the same time. And the impact of that then is, for example, Route C, if you got off of Route C to get to Route B, you now have a very long wait to make that connection. So for example, from Route A to Route B, or from Route B to Route A, it's offset by 30 minutes. So every time you're trying to transfer between those 2 routes, you'd have a 30-minute wait. Going from Route B to Route C, in that example, it's only 15 minutes if you're going from B to C, but most people obviously are making a connection, often round trip. And so the return trip from C to B is a 45-minute wait. So naturally, with 60-minute service, with untimed connections, you have on average 30-minute waits. With every 30-minute services, you would naturally have 15-minute waits at a minimum for every potential connection if you don't have a transit center or some sort of facility or some sort of location where routes can make a time connection. Because when you have that time connection, you can schedule all of your routes to meet at the same point and at the same time. And therefore, if you're going from route C to route B in this example, the two routes come together at the same point. There's a few minutes of waiting time for each route where they're all paused, and like happens today at Comet Central. And then they go on their way, they go back out, and therefore anytime anyone's transferring between these three routes, you have a pretty short wait. So it dramatically reduces that waiting time for connecting between services. And so that makes the connections drastically easier for people. And if you don't have reasonably timed connections when you have low frequency services, it is much harder to use the entire network of services across the region. Meaning, if you're trying to get from West Columbia to somewhere up on Maine or Faro, it's a very long wait to connect across between one side of the region and the other side of the region. Therefore, pulses make an enormous difference in these examples of the access that you can achieve. We've shown you some examples before of how many jobs can you reach in 30, 45, or 60 minutes. And this is an example from the Croson Superstop. And you see in 60 minutes, you can get pretty far up the Maine or Faro corridors or the two-notch corridors, in large part because your waiting time at Comet Central is so short. If you didn't have the ability to have a relatively short wait because vehicles can't meet or can't have some kind of a timed connection, then those tendrils of access that are running up these corridors don't exist. It means your ability to get somewhere in 60 minutes shrinks. And that's the basic challenge of why so many systems like yours have some kind of a timed connection at a central location. So I understand there's a whole lot of concerns about the way the current Comet Central facility is operating. The way buses line up, it blocks some ingress and egress to some of the surrounding parking lots, and I think some of the businesses even perhaps. So the main point I want everyone to understand is, the existing facility is not the thing you have to keep. The thing that is really important is that a relatively central location for buses to have a timed connection is really important to maximizing the access people have with the resources you have, with the transit network you can provide. If you want to keep that capability, what's needed in a pulse location is a place that infrequent routes that are only coming every 30 or 60 minutes, which is most of the services that are coming into downtown, where they can meet for every half hour, and park for about 5 minutes. Have that place where all the buses are coming together, all of the stops be a reasonably short and safe walk from each other. One of the challenges I know of the existing facility is actually the sidewalks around the existing facility are so narrow, and given the volumes of people, it's just really somewhat crowded and unsafe. So, that's a challenge I understand with the existing facility for sure. Ideally, you have some kind of facilities, either restrooms or customer service facilities, although some communities manage to do these kind of connections without those facilities. And then reasonably direct paths for buses to get to and from the point where they are making a timed connection. And then generally, this is a centrally located facility in and around a downtown area in most communities because, number one, by putting it in a central location, buses do not have to go very far out of their way, and time is money. So if you're going very far out of the way, you're spending a lot of time going out of the way to get to somewhere outside of that central location. But also, downtowns generally have a whole lot of demand drivers, places where a lot of people want to go anyway. And even if most people riding the bus are transferring to go somewhere else, you have usually a fair number of people who are riding the bus who want to go to downtown. And therefore, you are making the most effective use of your resources by combining all of those trips in the same vehicle and getting high productivity relative to cost. So again, the existing facility is not necessarily the best place, the best location, but these are the kinds of things you would want to do if you want to maximize the ability to have a useful timed connection centrally located for your network going forward. So that's just the big picture. I wanted to give everyone a sense of why that time connection is important and the physical needs that come along with that kind of a timed connection. So happy to take questions or on any of that at a high level.
And if I can, I'll add, Scudder, thank you for your presentation. Again, Scudder was asked to be on the line to make sure that he went over what was previously discussed in the service committee meeting. But we are aware of the issues right now at Comet Central, and we're trying to take every step necessary to make sure we mitigate those issues with the Lucius and River Superstop. As of right now, we were notified, I think maybe a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks, that may be some changes with the requirements for the traffic signal at the Lucius and River intersection. As we get more information about that, there may be more opportunity for us to explore, actually installing that facility. But we have to use, again, some of the information that Scudder presented today to make sure we're practicing the best practices of service planning, and that will be in the best interest of the neighborhood and also the communities that we serve. But again, we're open to answer any questions that you may have about the Lucius and River Superstop, Reimagine the Comet, and how these projects intersect, and just trying to figure out, again, just the best path forward and making sure that we're all on the same page.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Harris.
Yes.
Ms. Huggins, we're going to give clear movement on Lucius Road. I'm going to ask the board to, and I think Mr. Fergus and Mr. Brennan can talk a little bit about this too. We are going to move forward on Lucius Road. Okay. And we need to be in a situation where we need to address, and I know what Scudder is basically telling us about the efficiency of the system, but we do have a problem with staging buses on Sumter Street, and we need to address that. So I'm asking my consultants and staff to really look at how we mitigate that. And even though I know what's efficient, but we do have a problem on Sumter Street, and it is causing some serious problems with not just staging, but also my fellow police officers also having some problems. They're trying to dedicate resources to just fix some problems of staging so many buses and people in that area. So if from this point on, we are moving forward on Lucius, and I'm gonna ask the board to, Mr. Fergus and Mr. Brennan, to talk a little bit more about this. But I would like a motion, a clear motion and vote for Mr. Harris to move forward with the installation of the Lucius Road.
Thank you. I'll just ask, Mr. Brennan, do you want to start?
Mr. Fergus, would you like to make the motion?
No, go ahead.
All right, I'd make the motion that we move forward with the planning and implementation of the Lucius Road Superstop, as we have been working so hard on for many, many months.
Is there a second for that?
Can we hear from Ms. Moon?
You want a second before we discuss?
Oh, okay. A second.
Okay, great. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Well,
Yes.
Could we-
Madam Chair?
I imagine we're gonna have a good bit of discussion on this one, so let me see if we can keep things in order, and if, can we have everybody on the screen so I can see hands raised?
I'm not on the screen, Madam Chair.
Okay,
Yes,
Dr.
you are, Dr. Morris. You are.
Okay,
I
thank
can
you.
see you now. I can see everybody. I just want to make sure that I'm keeping track of who's raising their hands so I can give everybody an opportunity to speak. But Dr. Morris, if you want to kick off, that's fine.
Yes, to Mr. Harris. How many buses you contemplate being on Lucius Road, and how many buses contemplating being on Sumter Street?
I do not have the plans in front of me right now, but the overall issue is how many buses are lining up at Laurel and Sumter at Comet Central. So what the goal is to, I guess, slow down that, I guess limit how many buses are there at one time and kind of spread them out throughout the service area, which will create more transfer points, but it will help resolve the issue in an immediate manner.
Thank you.
Okay, there were a large number of buses on Sumter Street, and are you saying that most of these buses will be waiting on Lucius Road?
Yeah, you have some buses that will be now at Lucius and River, correct?
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Mood?
Well, I was very eager at the service committee for the whole board to hear this presentation so you could see the visual of exactly why we do timed stops, because that made it so much clearer to me. And what I've learned from Eric and from Mr. Wag was that those two central points, that where you have a system that's really dependent upon time stops to cut down on the waiting time if the buses are coming in frequently, that you really have to have two things. One is that, just as we've been talking about here, you have to have enough space and preferably off street, for people to get off and own buses so that you aren't disruptive to everything in the area, and so people can get to the bus they're transferring to. Because right now, when we're parked along the roadway at Sumter Street, it's a long walk from some of those buses to next, and you kind of can disrupt the system. So that space is one thing. But the other key point is central location, because we can set up a system that's really very wasteful in terms of the time that it takes the buses to go, and disruptive to people's travel, wasteful for our investing in the miles we pay for in terms of service, and disruptive to people's travel. And so it's been a real dilemma for us, because the Comet Central now provides the central location, but doesn't have the off-road space. Lucius Road is just the exact opposite. You've got the off-road space, but not in a central location. And so what my concerns are that we have a twofold problem, and that we just shift from one half of the problem to the other half of the problem. I mean, we haven't fixed it. And I've been really hopeful that we could move along rapidly enough on identifying a location and moving toward a multimodal transportation center that would serve both those, that we could find a location for that would be central and also provide us space. Now, in terms of the existing motion, the Lucius Road super stop as a way of kind of mitigating some of the traffic by treating it as the same kind of super stop that we have at Croson Road and these other places. Now, I don't have a problem with that, but I really have some serious misgivings about redesignating the Lucius Road as our central pulse point. Because I think that just sets up another whole set of issues.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I don't think we were doing that. I think what we're doing is mitigating and not trying to move it as a central stop. We're trying to address the amount of buses that are staging on Sumter Street, and we cannot be in a situation where we don't fix that. And so it's not a situation where we are moving to Lucius Road to be Graham Central Station. No, that's not what we're doing. We're just giving some relief to the pulse system on Sumter Street.
Well, and I get that, And what I was really hoping was that because I see this as an interim kind of solution to what we really ultimately want in terms of the multimodal station. You know, I was hopeful that there might be some ways to do that centrally, to find some ways to mitigate. I mean, you know, for some temporary period of time to use some of the off-road space there that might not be available to us permanently. You know, I was looking for those kinds of solutions. And the other concern I have about Lucius Road is that, you know, we have at times heard from DOT that they were going to do something about a traffic signal, and then we've heard at other times that they were not. And I'm not sure where that stands, but I can tell you, we cannot make it work there without a traffic signal on River Road. That one, we just can't.
But we have had conversations, Mr. Brennan and I, and Mayor Coble also, with DOT, and they have told us that they will give us a signal at that intersection.
Well, I'm grateful to hear that, a resolution of that. So.
And to that point, Executive Director Hoyes, they have also identified where the funding is going to come from and have that lined up as well. So the time frame is stamped out. I'm not sure why staff isn't up to date on that, but the subcontractor, the construction subcontractor, DOT, and upper staff have been in contact about stamping out that timeline with the light. I completely agree with you. Couldn't happen without that light. That is a go now. And to your point also, Ms. Moody, the intermodal is the long range, hopefully not too long. That is the goal, to be this end-all solution for us.
And I will brief you on where we are on that.
Okay, yeah, I know that's on the agenda too. Well, so really, I just have one remaining question, and that's for Mr. Wagon. That is, and Eric, what the planning for the Reimagine the Comet, you know, really is dependent upon. I mean, they can't give us routes without this being a settled issue. And so I didn't know whether they would be doing that on a kind of staged, saying, for the interim, this is what those routes would look like. And for when we have a central multimodal center, this is what that would do. So how do we do that, Eric, Mr. Wag, how do we do that?
If I can start off, Scudder. So again, we did already meet with the City of Columbia, Richland County. We tried to get Lexington County on the line as well, but we're gonna circle back around to them as well. But up to this point, we did plan with the super stop being in a centralized area like downtown Columbia. But what will happen is if we are in a situation where we do install an intermodal facility in a relative location, or we create future plans, we can implement the recommendations that come out of this discussion with the City of Columbia and other stakeholders and implement them in those type of ways. But I will allow Scudder to kind of shed more light on that conversation as well.
Yeah. So we did have some City of Columbia staff at the table as we were sketching out the draft plan, but we didn't have staff who felt like they could speak to the particular concerns about the existing facility. So I do know from what Eric and previously John Ando had told us that there are a few places around downtown where you might be able to stage buses away from Laurel and Sumter. So my suggestion to Eric, to Mr. Huggins, to the board as well is, if you all are amenable, if we can organize a workshop or a design retreat with, you know, the key folks from the city, of staff, from the, you know, downtown interests who are particularly you know, concerned about what's happening at the current facility, we can probably sketch something that could, in the interim, resolve a number of these concerns before you are able to build a larger intermodal facility, you know, off-site. And in addition to what you're already doing at River and Lucius, you could do even more by using some of the facilities that have already been identified, like at, I believe at Assembly and Landing, you have the ability to have 4 buses there. So there may be some solutions in the short term that could be implemented that do more than just what's possible with what you could do at moving a few things to River and Lucius. So that would be my suggestion for bringing those folks to the table, hammering out something that could be done in the interim while you work on a long-term intermodal plan. And that would then give you a very clear service plan that you could do next year, work on addressing these concerns about the existing facility and put you on a path to, finding the right thing to do long-term.
Madam Chair, I will be more than happy to ask my friends at the city and also the county to work with us to come up with a mitigation plan while before we get to the intermodal site.
Thank you. So how does that fit with the motion on the table?
So
Is that
I can kind of address, because if the motion was to approve Lucius Road, that's already been approved a while ago. But if the motion is to direct staff to move ahead with that, then
Move ahead with us also taking consideration some mitigation stops to alleviate some of the problems on Sumter Street.
So does there need to be a substitute motion or any change to the motion? And I see Mr. Smith has his hand up.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question, and if I'm redundant, please forgive me. I just want to make sure that I understand. Bill's question was, if I understood it, would we be, by virtue of moving forward with Lucius Road, would we be slowing down or hindering the process towards a multimodal facility? So I think we got that question answered, at least to my satisfaction. My question is kind of the other way. What do we do with this facility when we move forward with a multimodal facility? Are there plans for repurposing it? Or, I just want to make sure that we're not going to enter into something that's going to be a sunk cost kind of situation.
So as far as your first question, I saw a lot of no's, head shaking no. Mr. Harris, did you want to speak to the second part?
Yes, I can. So we tried to be as creative with the design as we possibly could by utilizing some of the space for a bus training facility. And we own much more than the space that we are actually using. So this could open the door for just a vertical construction project in the future. So we can expand the use of this area in itself if we were to proceed. But that is something that has been on the radar as I've been speaking with our engineers, is trying to make sure we capitalize the design of this project to have more flexibility in the foreseeable future if we were to come up with install a new intermodal facility or any other plans.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Can you stand it if I ask one more question?
Ms. Moon.
All right, so I want to be sure I understood what Mr. Wagg said the last time, because what I was hearing him say was that there may be possibilities before we actually get into constructing a multimodal facility to find just space for staging and that's more central, without it involving, have all having to be done at once. Was that what you were saying, Mr. Wagg?
I'm saying I can imagine some possibilities, but those possibilities need to be worked through in some kind of a design workshop with, the right partners at the city and other interests that could be workable as an interim solution to, as you do Lucius and River, but do some other things as well around downtown that might allow you to reduce the impact of all the buses staging at Laurel and Sumter today.
So that's really what you were discussing, that's what you were speaking to.
Yes.
So it sounds like to me that the motion on the floor is something we've perhaps already voted on, and perhaps the motion needs to be to instruct staff to move forward, to include the design workshop. Would anybody like to make a motion regarding that? Or do you want to?
The design of Lucius Road is pretty much complete. So now we're just looking at the construction timeline, which is 5 to 6 months. So we can get around the table with all of the people from county, city, but in 6 months, if we're nowhere, and you're assuming a lot that there's places to stack buses and within 2-3 blocks of the transit center, we're back to ground zero. We still have a problem. We have a major problem in downtown Columbia. We need to go ahead and engage staff to start working with DOT to push Lucius Road now as we work with the bigger picture. Everything he's talking about should just be stopgap issues over the next 6 months until Lucius Road blends in nicely to the operations of the transit center, in my opinion. So however I need to reword the motion to bring it to a vote, let me know.
I have a question.
Ms. Clayton?
My question, are we having really major problems downtown with people getting off of the bus and getting on the next bus? And the reason I'm asking that question, because I ride the bus periodically quite a bit, and I go to the doctors and stuff. I don't see a whole lot of ganging around like it used to be downtown. It has really been cleaned up a lot. And I state that because I see it when I get on and off the bus to go to my doctor's appointment or come downtown, and I do that periodically just to see if we're having a lot of cluster down there. And it really has been cleaned up, because I know for a known fact the mayor has had them clean a lot of that stuff up downtown. So now if there's a lot of major problems with the homeless and stuff, I don't see it. Now, I could be missing something. Maybe I'm just not down there to see all of that. But I've listened to everybody, you know, with their compliments. I love the bus. I've always loved public transportation. I go all over. And we need to make sure we have that public transportation. There are a lot of senior citizens cannot get to the doctor's appointments. They cannot get to the store. They don't have cars all the time. So this is our job. It breaks my heart to make sure if we don't have this service for our people, we please got to do that. There's no ifs and ands about it. As big as Columbia is, as big as the city of Columbia, I've been here over 40-some years. We need to make sure we have that public transportation. That's my curious.
Mr. Brandon, Madam Chair.
Yes, Director.
I think, Mr. Brandon, if you would make a motion, as you stated, to move forward, giving staff the direction to move forward with the installation of Lucius Road timely. And then also, we will work with stopgap measures also to ensure that we have some other sites that possibly could be used as staging to give some relief. So I think that's a decent motion.
Madam Chairwoman?
Yes.
I'd like to amend my last motion. Should I take it off the table completely, Pam, or just?
Probably would be cleaner, yeah.
Yeah. So how do I officially do that?
Withdraw it.
All right, I'd like to withdraw my previous motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a new motion, Madam Chairwoman,
Okay, Mr. Brennan?
to give staff direction to move forward with the installation and construction of the Lucius Road Super Stop, and also work with our community sponsors and consultants on stopgap logistics initiatives on these transit stop issues.
Thank you. Is there a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. So moved and properly seconded. Last chance for discussion. Okay, hearing and seeing none, Ms. Finer-Reed, will you call the roll?
Certainly, Madam Chair. Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Fergus?
Yes.
Mrs. Gleaton?
Yes.
Representative Howard?
Step down.
Step down. Mr. Lawson?
No.
Ms. Moon?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Chairwoman Teresa?
Yes.
That's a mouthful. Councilman Walker? The motion does carry.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to 6D, the multimodal update from our Executive Director / CEO, Mr. Derek Huggins.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. Over the last, actually 3 months, I worked very closely with a few board members, just getting their feel on what they would like to see in a multimodal center. And we have come to a agreement that we want it to be definitely centrally located downtown. We do have, out of 22 sites, we do have a preferred area that we want to move forward in which I cannot really discuss at this time because I hadn't done the due diligence to see how we move forward with the property. But what I can say is this is something, Ms. Move, that we will be able to move expeditiously with. We have funding sources. We have a team of individuals that meet weekly with the infrastructure bill money that's coming, Senate infrastructure bill that's coming. And it could be, I don't want to put a number out there, but right now it came out $5 billion coming to transit for the state of South Carolina. But it has dwindled down. But even if it's $3 billion for transit, that is still a lot of money for transit across the state. And with us being one of the largest RTAs, basically in rival with Charleston, I can easily see us having a huge amount of money to fund the project of a multimodal center. A multimodal center that includes not only transit, but also Greyhound, and also having ability to attract rail. I will be forthcoming as soon as we are allocated the amount for a special call meeting to move forward with spending those resources, all those sources of dollars to acquire and move forward expeditiously. Mr. Brennan and Mr. Fergus has worked very closely with me on this, and we will have a plan for everyone to review. That being said, Mr. Brennan, Mr. Fergus, did you want to add to anything? No. Okay. That's my update.
Thank you. And there's no motion required on that update. Okay.
Other than would like to ask that the intermodal committee members, and I would ask staff to evaluate who's on the committee so we can make sure that I have a committee to work closely with me before the special call meeting. So I know Ms. Mood is on that committee. I believe, Dr. Mars, are you on that committee?
No, but I would love to be on it.
Okay, Dr. Mars. So who would actually name the committee members?
The chair, actually.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so Dr. Mars would like to be on it. Mr. Fergus would like to be on it, and Mr. Brennan also would like to be on it. So if you would.
But to the point, sorry.
Ms. Mood. Yes, sir.
Any board member can participate if they'd like, correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Huggins, I'm curious about one thing. You talked about Greyhound being there. Would they be leasing a facility from us? We would not be giving them a facility, right?
No, it's not. They would have access to a lane.
Is there any action that needs to be taken on that now, or we can just accomplish this later? Okay, we'll get together to do that. Thank you. So item 6E, reimagine the comment update. Mr. Wag, can we hear from you again?
I believe he's getting. I think we're good.
Okay, so we're good. Okay.
Okay, Madam Chairwoman, I have a question.
Sure.
If, it sounds like the board is very excited about moving in the direction of a multimodal center. Does the process that we're working through with reimagining the Comet, does that need to slow down until we identify if that is a true path forward? Because that seems like it's, a very, if we change operations in 9 months and then two years down the road when we have this wonderful center available, we'd have to change again.
No, I don't think you have to do that. I think, I'm working very closely with Mr. Harris. He's fully aware of what we're talking about.
Okay.
And so he's not stopping the process. He is incorporating the intel that he has on reimagining the Comet.
So he's working towards a future vision that includes a downtown center, also the transit center in Lucius Road and all the other super stops.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
He's not in the dark. He is not in the dark.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
can we
Mr.
make
Ferguson.
it possible that all that stay in your service committee so we can get understanding and present whatever it is to the board?
The service committee? Okay.
You mean that we keep tracking the reimagining?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that stays on our agenda.
Yes, yes.
Great. Thank you all. That brings us to item 6F. Is there a soda cap service update?
Okay, I've looked at the soda cap for the last year as interim chair, and now interim CEO director. And no one is riding the bus. Okay, and for us to have an empty bus that is constantly going around Columbia every day, all day, and no ridership, I just think that it's something that we don't want to be known as. That's right. So I would like for the board to give us some direction on how we move forward on the soda cap connector.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we temporarily suspend the soda cap service as of yesterday and bring it back sometime in the spring through the service committee where it's developed, where it's productive. And I'd like to add one other thing, that we don't exceed the 2 caboose trolley. That's that a limit be set at the maximum soda tourist service we need around Columbia. See, as of now, we're up to about 4 buses that are empty, going nowhere. So,
And
we're keeping in the service.
And I know as far as yesterday is, I think as far as we need to get it done. I know we need to advertise to, even though it may be a few people that may be on that bus. I haven't seen one yet, but maybe. And, but we need to come up with a timeline to, and I know what immediate means. And we'll work with service and work with getting the word out to individuals to let them know that we'll discontinue. Now, I'm hoping that we can do that fairly quickly, at least within the next 30 days. But I will be moving forward with staff at the earliest to revamp this whole soda cap connector and working with our community leaders and some constituents to bring it up and something that people will bring it back up to something people will actually ride and take advantage of.
So there's a motion. I haven't heard a second.
Second.
yet.
I'll second.
Okay.
I think though, might need to amend the motion so that staff can adequately notify the public that that route is going to be stopped.
So moved.
Okay. Miss moved.
Okay. And what I want to be sure, I mean, some of y'all are a lot better at keeping all these routes in your heads, but I look at that ridership data every time, and somebody's riding that bus because we count them, but they're in the ridership data. So whether we see it or not, my main concern is that we not do something precipitous, because as I recall, the soda cap is our link across the river, and so that has been essential to connecting our downtown routes to the ones across the river. And I mean, I don't want us to do something quickly and have just a gap in the system. And that's why it's hard to do that in a motion in the middle of a board meeting. I mean, I think that's why we have committees that are supposed to track that down and see exactly how do you do that in a way that doesn't do harm.
So just as a matter of procedure, so we would have this motion and then would we address it in service committee?
We can't do it today and address it in service committee.
Right, but I mean, we could accept the motion and then send the motion to the service committee.
But Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr.
It shouldn't be but one connection with the soda cap connector, and that's State Street, a little bit on Knox Avenue Drive. And that bus, that soda cap connector, ran the route of a bus. So something, either the bus is gone or both.
Well, I just don't want the service to be
Right.
gone, whatever the bus
So
name
it
is.
should be a bus. Is that right?
That's my understanding, but, Madam Chairman, I would ask that there is a large employer over there, the House of Rayford, which probably some people might depend upon that soda cap connector to get to the House of Rayford from across the river. And I don't know, I'm looking at the statistics here. I don't see there's a statistic for the soda cap connector, and unless I'm confused of which one it is here, under shuttle service or express or reflex or other.
It says soda cap on it, most of those.
I don't see, I mean, in my
Route
Route Dev
one?
report on page 50,
Have it Route 1 or Route 4.
there's nothing that says
Route 1.
Route 1.
Could be Route 1.
Do you know how many people were using it? Do we have any idea?
As-
I think Eric.
Yes, as of August, we had 703 passengers on Soda Cap 1.
703?
703.
For the whole month?
That can't be right.
For the month.
That's August.
For 1 month?
As of August.
Huh?
As of August.
Is that just the month of August, or is that?
Service on that too.
Oh, see, Madam Chair,
Yes.
Ms. Reed is saying they're doing special service, so it's lost its character already.
Yeah.
See? Yeah, correct.
So what happens with soda cap is that a lot of people don't know how to ride it. So they don't know how to use it and they want to use it. I've gotten calls from Girl Scouts, from other community groups, and they have used soda cap. And what we did was add additional service on the route to accommodate them. So that's where a lot of these numbers are coming from.
So I'm sorry, I'm confused there. So the Girl Scouts are using it to transport, up and down. It's only happening on 2 locations, right?
Oh, no, not there. I'm just saying throughout the year, they may have a field trip that goes from their location to, let's say, the museum. Well, that's along Soda Cap's route.
Right.
So we just add additional service on that route to be able to transport them. And they have about 60 passenger rides every time they do that.
Oh, so you're saying that is how we could get up to a 700 number?
Well, I don't know. I'm just saying that's something that's added into that number.
Madam Chair, may I say something?
Yes, Mr. Jenkins?
Yes. I think, we shouldn't have banned anything right now. We're just coming out of a virus and stuff, a pandemic, and we encourage people not to travel, not to do this and not to do that. And now we're just coming out, so it's gonna increase. You just can't do it right away. I just wouldn't, like I say, I heard someone say, in a meeting, ban something in a meeting. No, you got to think this thing through.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Burgess.
This soda cap connector was, when we initially set it up, it was for tourist attraction, Vista, 5 Point, and around the college campus. But it never went off of a bus route. So it was really, we were doing a soda cap connector free and charging you on the bus. But we never used the soda cap connector to eliminate a bus route. So if the soda cap connector came off, it wouldn't interfere with bus transportation. But it's only temporary, so we can do what everybody's complaining about, put it back right. Where the tourists we'll, you know,
And
Go ahead.
may I add something? And it will also give us time, or give my team time to get out and really talk to our community partners like the Vista, like 5 Points, like West Columbia Casey, and like the hotels and the restaurants and the people that it's meant to serve, to make sure that they have buy-in. And we're not doing something to somebody, we're doing something for them.
With them.
Well, and two, the original design was for a downtown circulator. And it was to serve those populations that you talked about, but also the thought was, you know, people who work downtown and then they come out, they want to go to lunch. Well, they don't have to go up in the parking garage, get in the car, come down, drive a few blocks, go to lunch, that they could just come out of the office, get on the bus and go. So it was to help the downtown congestion as well as the serving the tourists. I guess what I'm thinking here is if we have time to implement the intent in a way that is not disruptive, to make sure that we don't remove service that people need or are counting on, but do it in a different way, then that makes a lot of sense to me.
Madam Chair.
I want to pay attention to the
Chair,
folks on the screen. I see
Robert
Mr.
Morris.
Dr.
Robert.
Morris, sorry, Mr. Smith, did you have your hand up again? Did you want to speak to this item? Okay.
You're on mute.
Yeah, to unmute there. Yes, Madam Chair, I just wanted to say that I feel like I don't have enough information to vote like full stop on no right now, but that it sounds to me like the service committee vetted it, came to the same conclusion that Mr. Fergus has. That would make me much more comfortable, given that there are some unknowns. It sounds like we don't know exactly who's writing it, who's reliant upon it, and I think I agree with an earlier comment. I believe it was Mr. Jenkins who said that we're at an unusual time anyway, and it's hard to to make a quick decision based on recent data may not be the best. So I guess I'm advocating one for clarity of the motion. What exactly is the motion? If it is to send it to the service committee, I'm all for that.
Thank you.
If it's to suspend it right away, then I think that I would vote no on that, just because I don't know enough about it to vote yes.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Morris, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, briefly. I agree with Mr. Smith and Mr. Jenkins. I think it should go to the service committee. We shouldn't be too hasty in cutting the bus route without letting the service committee do their job and then come back with a recommendation to the board.
Thank you. I believe we have pretty well talked this out. So the motion on the floor is the immediate suspension. Is there does anybody, is that the motion that you want to keep? Okay. Then I guess we will call the roll on that motion.
And what is the motion, please?
Would you want to repeat
Yeah,
the
the motion is
Okay.
to temporarily suspend the Sodas Cap Connector and bring it back, rebuilt in the spring.
In the spring, okay.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Fergus?
Yes.
Ms. Gleaton?
Yes.
Representative Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Ms. Moon?
No.
Dr. Morris?
No.
You said no, sir?
I said no. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
No.
Madam Chair?
No.
And Mr. Overture Walker? The motion does not carry.
Is there another motion regarding that item?
Can I interject something that
Yes,
was
Ms.
earlier? So Planning says that residents of the 9, which are students, ride SodaCap 1 to campus. And there was a ridership increase during the semester. So that's where some of those numbers are coming from.
Okay, thank you. Is there a different motion on that item?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the soda cap be studied by the service committee, and the service committee come back to the board in January with a recommendation.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Burgess.
As a member of the service committee, we've studied the soda cap connector for over a year. And I thought I was giving the service committee recommendation, but I guess I was wrong.
Okay.
No comment.
May I speak?
Yes, Dr. Morris, and I think we have a motion, but no second.
I'll second.
You did second it, okay. Yes,
Mr. Burgess, I don't disagree with you, but I didn't hear anything about what the service committee is recommending for soda cap, whether some routes should continue and we cut some or so forth and so on. And that's what I'm looking for. Tell us which one we continue to run as we study this and which one we would cut.
And speaking in favor of the motion, this would give us time too to follow our own rules about public information and public feedback and all. I think we can't skip that step.
okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Okay, Ms. Bonner Reed, will you call the roll for that one?
Mr. Brennan?
No.
Mr. Burgess?
No.
Mrs. Gleaton?
Yes.
Mr. Representative Howard?
Abstain.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Ms. Booth?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Councilman Walker? The motion carries.
Thank you.
Although I'm not sure which motion that was.
That was the one to have it
Study.
go around in the service committee.
Okay.
again.
Recommendation in January.
Yes, for recommendation in January.
Got it.
Okay, thank you all for your work on that one. 6G is the update from the City of Columbia Police. We already had the inspector speak to that. Is there a motion regarding, and I think Mr. Burgess was trying to make a motion earlier.
Motion to remove the shelters by transition and at the corner of Elmwood and Main.
Okay, so it's Elmwood in Maine and the one by transition. Calhoun in Maine. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay,
Question.
sure.
Do we have a loitering policy in place as a transportation system? And that may be not directly to you, Director, but to staff.
Yeah.
Ms. Bowers, could you speak on that?
Yes, we do have a loitering policy, and it's also posted at Comment Central as well.
Does our loitering policy lend itself to allowing law enforcement any actions if that loitering policy is not followed?
Now, I'm not sure about that part. We can check into that, but I'm not 100%.
Okay, and I would like to make one other note. I know that the city of Forest Acres was having an issue like this at one of their stops that I had heard. I don't know if that's been addressed, but if we could look at that as well. Thank you.
Madam Chair, so my concern here would be, and I totally understand the law enforcement's issue. My concern would be removing this and the people who do utilize this service now not having shelter when it rains, when it snows, from the elements, for a few bad actors, right? So support what law enforcement is doing, but their job is to weed out the bad actors, right? Our job is to take care of riders in the community. And so if we stop doing our job to help law enforcement do their job, now again, right, like the individuals in the community who utilize the service, they're being punished. And so let's just keep that in mind as we start making these decisions.
Thank you.
I agree. You said it.
Any further discussion?
Madam
Yes,
Chair,
Mr.
I'm in total agreement with all of that. And we suffer because the city of Columbia not, homeless problem, they just let it get out of hand. This was way before you, Mr.
Hey,
Brennan.
I hear you, Mr. Ferguson.
Right. We've had this even with the Comet Central. Now, the city of Columbia is gonna put a couple of $1 million in Finley Park. I wonder how they're gonna do it. So that may be a learning curve if we watch them upgrade Finley Park while we are upgrading the transit.
Ms. Mary,
Challenge
yes.
accepted, Mr. Fergus.
I had one thought, because in riding a bus, this was an intercity bus, but I was in Atlanta in the station. And the security came around just on a routine basis, and we had to just show them that we had a ticket, that we were waiting for the next bus. And I don't know exactly how that works now that we don't always have a paper ticket in our hands, for the bus service, because some people have it on the phone and, all sorts of things. But I wonder if there's not some alternative way to be able to enable the city police not to have to sit and wait and try to figure out who's getting on and off buses, but just when you come in, there's a crowd there to go around and see who's got a ticket, and if they don't, say, I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to move on.
Madam Chair, if I may, to Ms. Mood's point, I'm not an attorney. However, I think like we're now getting into an entirely different area where that's probable cause, right? To ask me if I have a ticket to be here, and now we're scratching the surface of a totally different area. And so we just have to be mindful of that. I do think Will brought up a good point. If we're gonna make a decision on this, I think we push this down to the security subcommittee, give us the opportunity to look at it before we make a decision.
I 100% agree with you, because I have been in that transit, waiting for the bus. And I've seen a security officer sitting there nodding. Now, I tell you what nobody told me. And I said, damn. She said, oh. So now if you're a security guard here and you're on duty, you're supposed to be focused the whole time you're in there, know what's going on in your surrounding. Am I correct? That's my point. I've seen it. And I tell you what nobody's told me. And like I said, I'm in or out Columbia all the time. I walk through my neighborhood, walk all around, and when I'm down at that transit, I watch my surroundings.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Director
Okay,
Hutchinson.
the issue, I understand, but this is an issue that is being exacerbated by several variables. And I asked Inspector to stay around, and maybe he can just reiterate what the problem really is and how it's been exacerbated. And we need to have some movement because it's not getting any better. And we're in a situation where we have not only people loitering, but we got crime and activity, harmful activity going on at these two locations. And so, and this has been an ongoing situation. So this is not something that I would like for Mr. Inspector Clark. Can you kind of speak on that a little bit more, please?
Yeah, it's, like I said, I've only been here a year, and I've been looking just in the last 3 or 4 months, have just kind of noticed the problem right there. And it's, I get it. I've seen a lot of bus stops. I drove a lot. The majority of bus stops don't have a shelter, if I'm correct. So there's not they're using your shelter as to sleep in, to hang out, to drink. We come do our job, we run them off. But we can't spend, the officers get calls for service, they have to go. In the North region, they an enormous amount of their times call for service is having to come over there because they've got to run the people off. My contention, or I believe that it will become a safer place if we remove that, because people, the times I'm out there, nobody's gonna go stand there and ride that bus, because we go in, we move them out, 20 or 30 minutes later, everybody's back, because they're using that. And you're right about just walking up, and we can't just go up to people and go, are you riding the bus, or, you're not allowed to stand here. And there's actually a sign beside the bus stop, a loitering sign that says, do not loiter, from the city of Columbia. So we try to, but if there is somebody there riding the bus, we want them to be able to ride the bus and not have to stand there. We saw a truck pull in. I got pictures of it. He comes by once or twice a week and picks up cans out of the garbage can, aluminum cans. I just don't think that's something that I know, as living in Columbia, want to have that. The bus stop is there for people to use. We should use that. I wanted to make it safe for people to use that bus stop, those 2 bus stops. Right now, I'm not going to use it. I don't want to go stand there, and I'm not going to if I'm telling somebody else, I would say, go move further down the road, walk. There's a bus stop down there, and there's not going to be anybody down there drinking, hanging around, and doing all kinds of things. We can run them off, and that's what we do. That's our job, and we'll move people along. But the reason I'm here is it's taking an enormous amount of our time and calls for service, and it's tying officers up just for these 2, for the North Region, just these two bus stops, because of the shelters are there. Are there other problems? Yes. Are we going to deal with those? Absolutely. But this was one right now that's really glaring. So that's.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Dr. Morris.
out of all due respect to the officer, I understand and I support them. However, I'm a little leery about setting precedents. If we move those 2 shelters, how about the one on Assembly Street? How about the one on Two Notch Road that I see the same thing? Are we gonna get into moving shelters every time we have problems rather than addressing the problems? We need, as a city, correct the problems and not put a Band-Aid on a certain situation.
Thank you. I see Mr. Smith has his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Brennan mentioned the issue we've had in Forest Acres. We have used the Commons internal rules to try to mitigate that, but we've had this repetitive problem. This one particular case, the person keeps coming back right after they're moved along. So it's a problem we're actively dealing with here. One of the things that's sort of come up in our conversation internally is, are there ways to deter that sort of behavior through, rather than removing the full shelter, put in benches that aren't conducive to staying for very long, things for lack of a better way to put it, things that aren't comfortable, things that can't be slept on. Have we, before completely removing a shelter or setting that precedent, as Dr. Morris says, are there ways to deter the behavior otherwise?
Thank you. And I see Mr. Harris has his hand up too. And also in the room, I have Representative Howard.
Yes, I was going to say to Andy's point, I do have the data here. It says that it's on average 45 passengers, about 46 passengers a day use that stop. But there are some ways to mitigate where you can put up a barrier and to prevent people from, wanting to lay down and things of that nature. So there are some alternatives we can explore if the board chooses to move in that direction. But I'm just providing information at this point.
Okay, thank you. Representative Howard, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, thank you. I support the director on moving the shelter. That's what we're doing, not to stop. Why don't we just try it? I mean, it's not like it's etched in stone. We spend hours now talking about a shelter and a stop. don't we just go ahead and give it a try? And if things don't work out, we can always go back to it. So I don't know, I think we got a motion or something. I don't know.
Thank you. I would have a question. Ms. Mood?
I would just say, you know, I can't tell you how much time we've spent in service committee trying to get shelters and benches. And in these meetings where we've said, we've got to do something about the conditions under which people wait for the bus. And so I'm very much with Chris on this. And I got a little bit encouraged when I just heard that recent discussion about whether there's some intermediate kind of steps we might make to not make this a home away from home, but neither to take away. Because Representative Howard, what we've learned in that process is it's not a simple process to put up a shelter and take it down and put it back up. I mean, it takes, we've got a whole group of people we contract with that go through the legal steps to do that and get the equipment. And so it's not it's that what you propose sounds appealing, but it's not an easy thing to do.
Can I respond?
Sure.
I mean, we have a professional from the city of Columbia that's saying they need help. And, you know, while it may take some time to construct a shelter, take it down, I think it's more important that we try and support the citizens in having a safe opportunity to ride the bus. And we have the city of Columbia stand here saying that they have problems. We got the directors is suggesting that we remove the shelter, not the stop. I mean, I don't see why we can't just do that and see how it works, how temporary, and go back to it.
I have a question, a couple of questions. So with that line of questioning, I would be interested in knowing what a cost would be for removal and then reinstatement if we do try to go down that path. And then I also have a question for whoever wants to answer it, is around, you know, if these are folks who are standing around, clearly they're spending their time drinking and loitering and things. Have we reached out to our community partners? You know, presumably they're not going to transitions because transitions isn't going to let you drink. But are there other community partners that could perhaps be resources in getting some of these folks, maybe some of the help that they need? Ms. Biner-Reed, yeah.
I just want to interject from our grants manager. Federal funds can only be used once to install the shelter, not to remove or not to put it back, so we can't use those funds again.
Okay, thank you. That's good information. And then I would still like to have that question answered about, have we been working with community partners?
Yes, we actually, the police department just hired an outside social worker or agent that's helping and have assigned a police officer, Officer Bowling, they took him out of patrol to put him with her. They are working, yes, and when we would work the stops, if we find people that need services, obviously, we're not there just running people off, but yes, there are situations where if somebody needs help, we will get them help. We will get them connected with Officer Bowling, and her name's Heather, but I can't remember her last name, excuse me. But yes, we do have somebody.
And are you finding that these are folks who are amenable to having services, or are they rejecting?
They don't want it.
That's all the questions from me.
Well, I think too, I mean, we have to realize that the downtown shelters, they turn them out in the morning. I mean, you can spend the night there, but they're back out on the street. And so, I mean, and if they're going to sleep that night back at the shelter, I mean, they're kind of stuck where they are and looking for someplace to spend the day.
Place to go.
Madam Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
Sir, you say this draws officers away from protecting our neighborhoods in the area. About, can you give us kind of a time, like summary? I mean, we're talking hours a day. What type of officer horsepower or is being drawn to this? Because that's pretty significant on an already depleted force.
Right. Well, I'll give you an example.
In a very important region, I might add, of the CPD.
Absolutely. And on last Thursday, I went out there with the criminal response team from the North region, and there was, think maybe 6 officers and myself, and we spent a good part of the day just at this bus stop, just because we knew it was, and that's when I sat out there. They were in marked units, I was in, and we just watched. And then when the crowd would get there, I would call them in, they'd come in and find out who they, if they were riding the bus, nobody was, they would leave. And then as soon as we'd leave, the officer would pull out, I would be watching them. We would wait, 30 minutes later, they'd all be back. Well, then we had one gentleman we ended up arresting because he was there for over an hour and a half. And we watched him, and we knew that he was there. And 2 buses came through. Nobody got on, nobody got off the entire time. And it was just, and that was when I was just thinking, I was like, we got 6 of us here spending most of the day.
Yeah, well, salaried employees of the city.
Right, but I don't want, my thing is, I don't want we're just asking the shelters. This morning, I was at 7 o'clock this morning, I rode by the one across from Transitions. There was somebody had been sleeping there all night, which I hate. I hate to see somebody do, but in the shelter, sleeping bag, I got pictures of, I'm hanging clothes. Those bus shelters they're not made for people to live in.
They're not living.
Yeah.
They have no right to live there.
Exactly, and my opinion, people are, 45 people being downtown in Columbia. I think when I hear that, I don't know the numbers, but I don't think that's a whole lot of people riding that bus. I just think that people don't want to go stand there. They're afraid to, or they feel uncomfortable and you're right, that's our job. We move them off, and that's the point of the whole thing is we're having to go in behind all the time because we're doing it. We can do it all day and it'll be fine. But that's the only thing that would get taken care of in the North region would be the 2 bus stops, because we'd have the entire CRT team where, I always don't like when people go, well, and you got crime other places, but sure, you could have a neighborhood be cars are getting broken into our homes. We can't, we're dealing, and I'm not saying it's gonna fix the whole thing. It's nice for people to, when they're waiting on the bus or to have a place to stand under. If it's raining, I get it. I wouldn't want to stand in the rain, nobody does. And they're nice shelters here. I came from Charlotte. I was born and raised in Charlotte, worked there for 30-something years. And, they have shelters and they've gone through picking them up and taking the benches out so nobody will lie down. And now they actually don't have the benches because whoever was sleeping there this morning, they don't have to worry about the benches.
Yeah, I was gonna make that point. I don't think these shelters have benches we can all.
Some do. But
These 2 in particular.
These 2 in particular do not have benches. So they're just, and I will tell the board, I'm sort of tasked with, I'm the new entertainment alcohol, and how I ended up dealing with this was because, number one, I was dealing with the places that sell alcohol, and that if they're not selling alcohol in a responsible manner, there we go. So I'm just telling the board here, I'm going to make a conscious effort. We're going to do other things at these locations. Hopefully that it will be a good place to put a bus stop. And, I don't understand, putting it back up, taking it down and those kind of things. But as long as that shelter's there, it's just going to be we're going to have to continue to do this over and over again and kind of spinning our wheels. Obviously I'm here and that's what, but we will work on other things that are causing problems. The lot is a problem. But the lot's there's trash all over the place. Why? Because they're just hanging out. And our opinion is most of the people are not riding the bus. They're using your shelter to hang out and loiter because they don't have anywhere to go.
And that's a conversation to have with the property owner, Pastor Jimmy, about that specifically.
Right, and we're talking that and talking to the convenience store and those kind of things. It's just a whole, but I'm just asking the board I think this will help. And it's definitely not my intention or anybody's intention to make it uncomfortable to be at that bus stop.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. I see Mr. Jenkins has his hand up on the screen.
Yes, I like to say one thing. I'm sure City of Columbia have a loitering ordinance and littering. They can put a sign up at that bus stop and with the ordinance and said no trespassing if you're not riding the bus, and you won't have to arrest about 1 or 2 people. And that would make the whole thing, I think, would go away. I know everybody have hard times and stuff, and, you know, you have homeless people and stuff, but you handle them with kid gloves in the smaller way. I mean, you attract more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. So that's my opinion. Let them know. I mean, if nothing there to let them know that they're breaking the law, then they're gonna keep breaking the law. But if the comment will put something up, let them know that they are trespassing on their property, it's got a chance of going to jail.
Thank you. Can I just ask, does the City of Columbia Police Department have, I guess, jurisdictional rights for Comet property stops? Is that something that we've already established?
Well, I think they're on sidewalk area around it. So it's, and by the way, there is a sign there about loitering at that bus stop, has been since so they ignore the sign.
Okay, all right. Representative Howard, I'm gonna try to go around the room.
Thank you. You know, I hear the thing about arrest, but those people don't care about being arrested. That's not a punishment. I mean, it's just an opportunity to get in out the weather, get a good meal, and it's back on the taxpayers. So I don't think being arrested it matters.
All right, thank you. Mr. Brennan?
I think we should take up Mr. Fergus's motion, but then I would also like for Mr. Lawson to have something sent to the his subcommittee to look at a broader policy that works with each of our delegation, county, city, to help with, you know, loitering policies uniformly throughout the comment system. But I'll let him make that motion if he'd like to later on.
And Madam Chair, let me interject one more thing. You know, very seldom you get a phone call from the chief of police asking for some help. I mean, he is basically asking us because he has tried to do all the things that everyone has said earlier. So when you have an individual calling and saying, I need your help because I've exhausted all my resources and I'm still having the problems, and my capacity as far as with COVID, I'm not up to a full police force. I'm spending too much time on these areas. So I don't take it very lightly when you have your city manager and your police chief asking this board for some help because he needs some relief.
Okay, do we have, I'm looking around the room, I don't see any more questions, comments. Mr. Jenkins, were you finished with your hand? Is your hand still up from before? I think it's just up from before. Okay, Ms. Binary, would you call for the vote on?
Okay, can we restate what the motion is?
Sure.
I'm kind of lost.
So
to remove the shelters, bus shelter at Calhoun and Main and Helmwood.
And then also to study future.
Study
future.
Should that be a separate motion though, you think?
Something was passed on to the committee. Was that shelter passed?
That was security committee.
Yeah.
That was a
do you want to
recommendation.
split the question?
I mean, the fact of the matter is that we can ask service or the security subcommittee just to take a look at how we mitigate these issues in the future.
Does that even need to be a motion right now? It doesn't. It doesn't. Okay, so
Okay.
let's just take the motion at hand.
May I just say one thing?
Ma'am?
We painted a good picture here of the fact that we have a homeless population and they don't have any place to go in the daytime. And so what we seem to have done is come up with an action that says we'll take away one more place that they don't have to go, which is not really helping the problem where they need more places to go, not bus stops. but more places to go. So I think we're coming at the problem, you know, in a way that's not, it's not really the bus system's job to fix. We're just living with the consequences of there not being any place for them to go in the daytime.
Dr. Morris, were you trying to speak up?
Yes, Madam Chair, now, are we saying that we're gonna move the shelter farther up the street or just dismantle the shelter?
My understanding is that is to remove it altogether.
I would like to say to Mrs., oh, I'm sorry. Are you done, Dr. Morris? I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm here.
Madam Chairman, I mean, to Mrs. Moon's point, the homelessness is a serious issue that we've got to address. And I am for one, I mean, I'm trying to lead the charge and Councilman Summers as well on the Lexington County side. But they do have a place to go. There is a sitting room and transitions that they can sit all day. I mean, and it's warm, it's safe. I mean, there's services there. So, I mean, it's not that we're removing a shelter that, I mean, they can't go to any other place. We're removing a trouble spot, just as we would remove, I mean, in various municipalities, we remove homes that are being overrun with homeless people that are vacant, that are unfit for human habitation. So, I mean, it's not, I mean, to me, it's not that I do not care about the homeless people. I want to see them get a housing, to be able to afford housing or to do something to get in a better circumstance. And I would never want to just completely kick someone out.
Okay, so that's been a robust discussion. Ms. Bono Reed, will you call for the vote for that?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Burgess?
Yes.
Ms. Gleaton?
Yes.
Representative Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
No.
Ms. Mood?
No.
Dr. Morris?
Abstain.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Chairwoman Teresia?
No.
Mr. Walker? The motion does not carry.
Hold on.
I count that one. Run it. Yeah. Let me read who I have. Mr. Brennan, yes. Mr. Fergus, yes. Ms. Gleaton, yes. Representative Howard, yes. Mr. Lawson, no. Ms. Mood, no. Dr. Morris abstains. Mr. Smith, yes. Chairwoman Teresia, no.
So that's 5-3.
5-4.
5-4.
So it
Yeah.
carries.
So it carries.
And abstain counts as
The abstain counts as a what?
as a no?
As a no. Well, yeah.
No.
It doesn't count.
No, it counts as a state county council vote.
But your
Counts as a
quorum
no,
is 6.
not.
The well, it's a majority of
Of those
of
voting
what's
members.
here, voting members here.
Okay.
So how many voting members do we have here?
10. So you need 6.
Okay.
So it does not carry.
Who didn't,
No,
I-
5-4,
I've
it
found-
carries with 5-4.
who didn't
Wait a minute,
vote?
1, 2, 3.
Dr. Morris
Abstain.
abstained.
Oh, Mr.
Overture Walker.
Overture Walker is not here, so we got 10, which is 9.
I'm not
It
here.
does, right, yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
So we have 9 voting members. We have 9 voting members and 5 voted in favor.
right. It does carry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're just gonna have to stop staying away from each other, so.
Okay, so that motion carried, and we will look forward to this item being taken up in security or services, so that we can anticipate what comes next. So 6H, progress update from RAP Dev.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. It's very nice to see you. Information has been included in the packet. I will mention that since our last meeting, we did move forward with our town hall meetings with Dr. Damon Daniels, a local physician. It was an educational town hall meeting to educate our employees in reference to the vaccine and the coronavirus. It was very well attended. It was a good turnout. You know, like to report that went well. We like to believe that from those sessions, we did see a bump upward in vaccinations. You know, we continue to encourage our employees to get vaccinated and continue to educate them as well. And that includes our current staff and any new hires that we have brought on. And I'm open for any questions about the information in the packet.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Burgess?
On new hires, is that a requirement for new hires? Or are we giving them the option of vaccine?
It actually has not been a requirement, but I can report on our last class, we were 100% compliant. Each person was vaccinated that we have brought in. So we add those numbers into the overall fold.
Thank you. Thank you for that report. I don't see any other questions or hands. Mr. Jenkins, is his hand still up from before? Okay, great. I'm going to move us on to item 6I, trapeze add-on modules request. Dr. Prince.
Good afternoon. There's information on pages 94 through 95 on this discussion item, and I won't read the information that's included in your packet, but we'll provide you with a quick summary to share the information that's there. Basically, we're requesting to add 2 modules to our existing trapeze software, which is utilized for paratransit operations. And this software was purchased during 1999, scheduling dispatching. The 2 modules that we're requesting to expand upon will be, the first module will be for our ADA paratransit certification program. Currently, this program is implemented by South Carolina. So they receive all the applications and they process them, and each individual goes through an assessment. And once they process the applications, they send everything to the comment, and from there we share information with the DART office. Currently, there are various spreadsheets that are utilized, so it's a lot of data entry. And also with the transfer of the information, there's an opportunity that the information could be misplaced as it's transferred. The second module focuses on, is called service infractions, and it focuses on our no-show policy. So it's a way for notification to be sent to the customers about missed trips and late cancellations. And currently, the DART office is having a difficult time collecting all the information and getting it to the customers in a timely manner. So we're looking for a fully automated process that will assist us in being more efficient in the way we manage our DART applications and also our notifications that are sent to our customers. Currently, we have checked and we can use federal funds, 80%, for these software packages. And also one of the requirements that if we're going to use federal funds, that we also perform an independent cost estimate and a price analysis, and these were performed by our procurement consultant. And the price came back as fair and reasonable. And also, we have been in communication with our IT representatives, and they will be involved with the technical support aspects of the software. And I have also talked with our legal consultant, Ms. Baker, Attorney Baker, and she will assist with any contractual arrangements that are made regarding the software. And also, Mr. Fergus, you had a request about the version that was being used and what we were planning to purchase and what's the most recent version that's available. And when I checked with our IT representative, I was informed that we're using version 19. And I had a chance to check directly before the meeting started today. And of course, Jeremy, I think he's still on the call, but he informed me that he has installed version 19. And he said that's the most latest version.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Burgess?
I've checked on that same thing yesterday, and I was told that we're half are using 18, half are using 19. So my assumption is, why would we be trying to update old versions? So I'm thinking that information need to be regathered and presented again to the board when they have the correct information. Because my information came from a user, so, and that seems to be the problem we have with call out data, is that something's wrong with the program not communicating with each other, and that's part of it. One using one version, one using the other. But I would like to make a motion that we only purchase the latest version on the market and only pay for updates of that version. See, and that's basically what's in the request, but it's still not covering the version 18 that we're using.
Yeah, one thing I want to share is that for the two modules, these will be completely new modules that will be added to the existing software. So these would help with, like I say, the DART eligibility program and the notification. So we currently do not have these updates or these modules added at this time.
Yeah, see, and those modules, the new modules to be purchased are a supermodel module for the updated version 19. So I'm fine with that. But those that are using 18 is not compatible with 19. So why are we?
Is that right? Is that right?
So may I interject the?
Yes, and I just want to mark that we have a motion, but no second.
Okay, the IT manager says that 19 is the only one that's installed on our system right now. And that nobody at the Commons is using 18. That's what IT is saying.
Let's see, Madam Chair, can we have that information collected from all users, trapeze, and just present it to you, and you can make your own call if they are using the latest version on the market. But see, because it's unusual to call to a user and they tell you, well, half are using 18 and half are using 19 after they go check.
Okay.
I have asked a question. Sure. Does Dr. Prince need an action by the board in order to purchase that? Is that what we're looking at today?
Yes. Yes. And I guess my question is, how time sensitive is this?
I guess we do not have to make a decision today, but the thing is that we were trying to move forward in terms of how we're currently processing our applications. Now, as for the modules that we are asking to add, only, well, for the ADA, the paratransit module, that's only being used by Able, South Carolina, by our office, and we're just transferring information to the DART office, so all the users will not be utilizing the modules.
Madam Chair,
Dr. Morris.
I'll agree with Mr. Burgess. We should take a look to see whether everyone is using 19 before we try to add modules to it.
And I'm sorry, maybe I'm just misunderstanding something, but who is everyone? Are we talking about the end user? Are we talking about comment? Are we talking about Able?
Only comment. All I'm concerned with is comment.
Right.
And we're paying for comment to get a program. That's all I'm concerned about.
So Madam Chairman, he's saying that comment is not using all of 19?
No, when I called and asked are using, they said half are using 18 and half are using 19. And then when we come into meetings and ask why we don't get the right numbers or the right things happening, they say the program isn't communicating with each other.
Can we ask Arlene and Dr. Prince and Mr. Deschamps to do more due diligence on this for me and just work with Mr. Fergus and come back to the.
And I think the chair can make that call once they present it to the chair that it's done.
I think, no, we have to.
We have to motion it.
Yeah, we have to act on it today to approve her to
go
purchase.
forward.
Right.
So could we amend the motion to say that we approve proceeding with this purchase contingent upon it being compatible with existing users.
No, but see, that would still would leave 18 users out.
No, I'm talking about all existing users, because then,
Right, if we do it like that.
because what I'm hearing is that these two units may not have to be compatible with all of the rest of trapeze. These are two separate functions.
Correct. I see Mr. Franklin has his hand up on the screen.
He's the para manager for our paratransit. We are using both 18 and 19, so Mr. Burgess is correct. He wanted to just interject. Dennis, could you add a little bit of color to this?
I think he's on mute.
Yeah.
You're on mute. Mr. Franklin, you're on mute.
He's on the phone, isn't it *7 or something?
Speak *6.
*6. Try *6, Mr. Frank. There you go.
Got it.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So my name is Dennis Franklin. I'm the operations manager over here at DART. The reason it's saying both version 18 and 19. So when the version 18 we're only using on the schedule server side, that has not been fully upgraded. Trapeze has some issues, so they won't convert that until later on next, probably towards the middle of the year. All the applications that we use are using version 19. The models that Dr. Prince is putting in for request are all adaptable to version 18, and they are there, so they will be compatible to the current versions that we're using, and there'll be no change to the user end, and then the interface doesn't change, so all the users would be able to just continue moving on as is. But what it does do, it gives us the ability to expand what we need to do, how we need to do it, and be able to control a lot of our no-shows, and as well as the credentialing process through ABLE. So that's what I had.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor, but it has not been seconded. Is that right?
Can we restate the
Can we
motion?
restate a motion and make sure we get a second?
Ms. Mood has to make a clear motion.
Okay.
All right, so I'm moved that we approve the request that Dr. Prince has presented to us.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved and properly seconded. Further discussion?
Yes.
Hearing and
Yes. Because what was just said is the same thing I was saying. This just upgrades 18, but it doesn't make 18 19. And we should all the programs should be the latest version, which is version 19. Why would we purchase an upgrade to an old version rather than purchasing the new version?
Here's what I understood Mr. Franklin to say, that they're working on that overall, but that these two components that are 19 don't interact with those others in a way that would be incompatible.
Sounds like they're doing it in phases.
Right, and that these won't create problems in another part of the system. That's what I understood.
We will hear this again.
okay. Well, we have a motion and a second. We've had plenty of discussion. I'll ask Ms. Bonnery to call for the vote.
Mr. Brennan?
No.
Ms. Burgess?
No.
Ms. Leeton?
Yes.
Representative Howard?
No.
Mr. Lawson?
No.
Yes. Mr. Morris?
No.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
No. Okay, and what happens now?
It's a no.
Okay. Do we need to take a different, is there another proposed action?
Mr. Burgess, you want to make the motion for the updated,
That was my motion, that we only, well, Ms. Mood really made the motion afterwards, that we only purchase the latest version that's on the market, which is 19. And all our upgrades are to 19. Version 19.
I'll second your motion, Mr.
Okay,
Burgess.
it's been moved and properly seconded. My question to staff is that possible? Is that a workable solution? Like, can we do that and things work?
Well, you got to be able to do it because they say they're already using 19.
Sure. Okay. Dr. Prince?
That's fine.
Okay, great. So that's the motion on the floor for 19. We've had, again, plenty of discussion about this. I'll ask Ms. Binary to call for the vote.
Sure, Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess?
Yes.
Ms. Bleaton?
Yes.
Representative Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Ms. Mood?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Walker? Motion carries unanimously.
Great. That brings us to number 7, motion periods from board members. I know that we had one proposed motion. We don't, can somebody help guide me through this? Because this is not my usual wheelhouse. So is there a motion from the floor?
Was that the only
Yes,
motion I made
regarding
was
Monmouth
that we
GE.
take up the proposal from Dr. Miller,
Yes.
but at our next meeting.
Yes, at our next meeting. Got it. Okay, so that will be for next time. Item 8
Madam
is,
Chairman?
yes.
Can I make a request here that as chair, you look at the committee assignments and maybe assign a few more people who are not assigned to committees, to the various committees?
Okay, I will put that on my to-do list
Thank you.
with, as we look at the intermodal committee as well. Progress reports. For information only, we have 1 minute per presenter. I'm going to keep everybody to that. The chair report, I don't have one. Executive committee update, do we have one? We don't have one. 8B is the committee chair's update. B1 is service committee updates. Ms. Mood.
I don't think we have anything new to add.
Okay. B2 is the finance committee updates. Mr. Smith.
Yes, we just met once, November. We did not meet in December. Standing committee meeting, reviewed financials through the first quarter, reviewed the DBE compliance. The one thing that I think came up in our meeting and that I would request of staff is just to give us a report as a committee on the federal funding. So that was obviously part of our discussion earlier in this meeting was the potential federal funding that's coming our way. If Finance Committee can be apprised of, the latest information on that, that'd be really helpful.
Oh, I completely forgot. Let me just interrupt myself because we had a vote earlier that was counted to have been failed, but actually it passed, and then that affected a subsequent vote. So, correct me if I messed this up. So this vote on the soda cap did in fact pass. That original motion to suspend the soda cap that Mr. Fergus had originally put forward, that did in fact pass. Right. So then the subsequent motion to send it back to committee is of no effect. So that motion, I just want to report out to the board that did in fact pass.
Madam Chair, who
Yes.
counted that vote?
Here's my problem now. The people tomorrow morning who go to catch the soda cap, there is none, and we haven't let anybody know.
Well, we're not gonna do that.
Well, it says suspend immediately as well.
Well, he was being facetious on that. More than anything else, we will do our due diligence to get the word out.
Definitely, on proper notice to the
On proper
public.
notice, yes.
To the service.
Yes.
So I apologize for that, but I did want to report that out to the board. Did nothing else changed?
Nothing else changed.
Okay.
And just to clarify, we have 11 board members. Today, our quorum, we had nine voting members present. And so when we voted, you would only need a vote of 5 to pass the motion. So that initial soda cap vote was 5 yeses.
So 6 is still quorum,
Yeah.
correct?
Yes.
So anything less than 6 is not quorum?
Correct.
That's what I think.
Okay. So sorry about that. Just wanted to make sure I said that before we finished up today. 8C is the interim executive director and CEO update. Director Huggins, do you have anything?
But no more than what I said earlier about multimodal and making sure that Mr. Smith and committee, finance committee understands the new dollars that are coming in from the rescue plan and the Senate infrastructure. And then also I will make sure that service is apprised of all the dollars that will come to help augment some of their areas too. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you. C1, Director of Administration, COO report. Mr. DeChamps, you have been enduring this quietly the whole time. What do you have for us?
Just, you can find my report on page 126, 127, and I'll just add a couple quick things. We did have some staff that attended the After Conference and Expo in Orlando. That's Comet staff and RETP Dev staff. We also just installed a new phone system here at the administrative office last week, so we're in the process of kind of getting used to that with all the features and settings and everything, but that's in place. And the last thing, on behalf of myself as HR person, just want to welcome Mr. Huggins as an interim executive director and CEO, and just let him know once he works with the staff, he'll never be the same, and that's a good thing. So just want to welcome him on board and everything.
Great.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have one question.
Yes.
Madam Chair.
The cleanup, bus stop cleanup contract.
The bus stop cleanup contract, RETP, yes, sir. RETP Dev is still working on that.
Yeah, that's correct.
They're still working on that. They haven't given us,
Has it gone out to bid?
No, sir. We're still working through that. I'll
How
have
we
more.
cleaning up the bus stops?
Yeah, it has not gone out to bid. But it's still, the job is still being done currently, but it has not gone out to bid. I hope to have an update on that soon.
Thanks.
Madam Chair, Madam Chair, I would like to commend Mr. Chant for outstanding job, and I think he saved us over $100,000. If you take a look at, he was doing 2 jobs, and he didn't have a car, he didn't have a telephone, so forth and so on. We should give him a bonus for the outstanding job.
I
second that.
Combination of the bonus.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. DeChamps. Does that conclude your report? Okay.
Do we, Madam Chair, do we refer that to the Finance Committee?
No.
It's in executive session.
Yeah.
Executive session? Oh, okay.
It's already.
It's on the agenda.
I'm
Oh,
not
is
sure.
it?
We may not have to go into executive session to deal with it. I just put it on here just in case,
Oh,
but
okay.
we'll get to it.
Great. C2 is our Director of Finance and CFO, Rosalind Andrews.
So can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, I have nothing more to say, but what is in the paper, 128 to 129, just kind of outlines the activities we go through. As I told most people, accounting, not a whole lot of glamour. We kind of do stuff every day, but outlines to highlight what we thought. But if there's any questions to anything that you see before you or anything that you want to know, I'm here to answer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, that brings us to 8C3, Director of Compliance, Dr. Prince.
Okay, on pages 132 through 135 is information regarding the DBE utilization. There are 4 documents and it's just a snapshot of where we are regarding DBE utilization. The first 2 pages, 132 through 133, reflects the vendors that are with the Comet. And we kind of like want to show you a breakout of the dollars that are being given to DBEs with our vendors. On page 133 is just a breakout of, you'll be able to see the actual dollar amount. On pages 134 through 135 is relevant to RATP Dev and their DBE utilization. Page 134 just reflects from the start of the contract from July 1st, 2020 up through today's date. And page 135 is for this fiscal year only, we started July 1st of 2021. The numbers will continue to change month by month based on the payments that are made by the comment and by the contractor. And I also want to be aware of next year, our DBE federal goal will expire, and it expires on September 30th. And we have until August 1st to submit our new DBE goal methodology to FTA. One of the requirements is that we have a public consultation meeting that is to bring in DBEs and potential DBEs and get feedback from them about our goal methodology. And one of the things that we want to do is use this as an opportunity to talk about all of our contracting opportunities that are available with the comment, as well as when it comes to the new monies, the Infrastructure Investment and Job Act bill. We'll look at those, any dollars that come through in those programs as well, and see if there are any potential opportunities for DBEs.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Hey, Dr. Prince, at that time, when we're going through that process of making those recommendations, are we also recommending or requesting new DBEs, looking at the current list of DBEs that we currently partner with?
Well, when we, in terms of the available dollars that we have, we look at all DBEs that are in the directory, been using SCDOT directory, because that's the directory that mandated that we have to use for any federal funds.
Okay.
So we use the state's DBE directory.
So any partnerships that expire at that time, do we select new DBEs?
Well, we have an opportunity, if a contract ends, you have an opportunity of using that same DBE, or you could select a new DBE. So that would be an option that would be available to us.
Okay.
Thank you. That brings us to item 8B4. Director of Art Marketing and Community Affairs, PIO, Ms. Bono Reed, has a report on pages 136 through 140. Do you want to speak to any of that?
Yes, thank you for that. All I'd like to say, the information is there about what we've done. We've had an uptick on community events, but I do want to call out the fact that this year, the Comet has won 5 total awards, 1 national, 4 regional, for Sarah Mae Fleming campaign, our COVID brand awareness pivot, and for Don't Miss Your Shot. So that was done in conjunction with Flock and Rally. Our team in Flock and Rally garnered those awards.
Great work, Doug. Great work. Great work.
And let's not forget our 2021 woman of influence sitting right here in front of us. Okay, thank you for that. 8B5 is the review of board motions. I don't think we have any. And then item 9 is executive session. And we probably can, would you want to speak to this?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think we can do this without going into executive session. This has to do with when Mr. Deschamps was retained as the interim ED, the contract approved by the board provided that he could be awarded a bonus in the amount of $5,000, but it was at the board's discretion, so we would have to have a motion and approve that be awarded given to Mr. Deschamps per his contract.
Does the motion need to list the specific quantity, the amount?
Well, it's in the contract, so,
Okay.
which
Just
is a,
reference the contract.
right.
Well, let me add, as serving as chair and working with Mr. Deschamps, and I completely agree with Dr. Morris. Mr. Deschamps stepped up and worked tirelessly and worked with the staff and did, yes, 2 jobs for the cost of 1. And he was a company man, so I really do appreciate his help over the last 6 months. And just wanted to add that before you have any more discussion.
Is there a motion regarding the contract, I guess? the agreement?
Awarding the bonus pursuant to the contract.
Is there a motion regarding the bonus pursuant to the contract?
Yes.
Chair,
Yes, Dr. Morris.
I move that we award Mr. DeChamp a minimum of $5,000 for his service to the comment.
I second.
It could be no more than
Okay, okay. Was there a second to that?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Fergus seconded. Any further discussion regarding that? All right, hearing and seeing none. Ms. Bino Reed, will you call the roll?
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess?
Yes.
Ms. Gleason?
Yes.
Representative Howard?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Yes.
Ms. Mood?
Yes.
Dr. Morris?
Yeah.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Walker? Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, the last item is adjournment, and we can do that by acclamation. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you all.
Merry
everybody,
Christmas, Happy
for
New
our
Year.
today.